If the dog hadn't scratched the chair, no one would have ever known. No one would have lifted the cushion. No one would have found the butterfly-shaped hair clip. And Emily Jane Thompson would have remained just a name on a weathered gravestone beside the town pond. It started on an ordinary Thursday morning in Maple Glen, a quiet suburb tucked somewhere between rolling wheat fields and the sigh of rustling corn. The kind of town where doors still got left unlocked, and folks waved at the garbage man like he was family. At Little Acorn's Daycare, snack time had just ended, and the children were back in the playroom, sticky hands and all. In the middle of the chaos, Officer Jenna Brooks stepped through the doorway, her canine partner Dozer by her side. The visit was part of a Meet the Helpers week. Local police, firefighters, and paramedics stopping by to talk about safety, strangers, and what to do if you get lost. The kids loved it. They always did. Dozer, a massive sable German shepherd with focused amber eyes, usually stole the show. Today, though, he didn't care for applause. He didn't even react to the squeals or outstretched fingers trying to pet him. Instead, his attention locked onto something no adult noticed: an old wooden rocking chair in the far corner of the room. It was the kind of chair you'd see in a grandmother's sunroom. Heavy curved arms, deep mahogany finish dulled from age and use. A faded blue cushion that didn't quite match the rest of the room's bright plastic furniture. Dozer sniffed once, his ears twitched. Then he lunged. "Whoa, buddy!" Jenna called out, pulling back on the leash. But Dozer wouldn't stop. He pawed hard at the chair, his nails scraping wood, growling deep in his throat, barking. The kids froze. One little boy dropped his juice box. Several toddlers began to cry. A teacher rushed forward, trying to soothe them, while another knelt beside the chair. "Maybe he smells food or something," she suggested, reaching for the cushion. "Or a toy. God knows we lose 100 of them a week." She lifted the cushion. Everyone leaned in, and there it was. A small pink hair clip, glittery, shaped like a butterfly, wedged beneath the padding. At first, no one said a word. Then Miss Carla, one of the longest-serving teachers at Little Acorns, turned pale. That looks like Emily's." Jenna turned toward her. "Emily? Emily Jane. She drowned 2 years ago." Carla's voice cracked. "She was one of ours, that same exact clip. Her mother said she wore it every single day. Pink butterfly. You don't forget something like that." The room chilled. Not from the air conditioning, but from something colder, something older. Because Emily Jane Thompson was dead. She had drowned in the community pond during summer field trip season. At least, that's what everyone believed. Carla left the room and returned moments later holding a laminated photo. The class picture from 2 years ago. There she was, Emily, center row, second from the left. Dark brown hair, a little too long for her age, big eyes. And right there, perched on her head, the exact same clip. Jenna's jaw tensed. "You're sure this wasn't just another kid's clip?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "No," Carla said, barely above a whisper. "No one else wore those. Emily had 6 of them. Her mom bought them as a set. Said they were lucky." Dozer sat beside the chair now, still staring at it, head low, tail unmoving. He knew something. Jenna picked up the clip using a tissue and slipped it into a clear evidence bag from her pocket. The weight of it felt heavier than plastic, and glitter should. "I'm going to need the contact info for Emily's parents," she said to Carla. Outside, the sun still shined. Children still played in yards just blocks away. But inside that daycare, something had shifted. The walls suddenly felt older, the laughter thinner. Jenna took Dozer outside and dialed the precinct. They needed to reopen Emily's case. Quietly. No press. No parental panic. Not yet. Because whatever happened back then, they might have gotten it all wrong. And if you believe dogs never forget what humans try to bury, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel Heroes for Animals, where real stories of canine courage, loyalty, and truth come to light. Back in the break room, Carla sat with a mug of coffee she didn't drink. "They found her shoes by the water," she said. "That's why they thought she'd fallen in. But I remember thinking she was always scared of the pond." Jenna paused. "Scared how?" "She used to scream when we'd walk by, said there were monsters in it." Carla looked up. "We thought it was her imagination. Kids say stuff, you know." Jenna didn't respond right away. She stared down at the clip again. This wasn't imagination. This was something real. Something that had been sitting just feet away from children all this time. And someone had put it there. When she got back into the cruiser, she flipped open her old notebook. Page 4. Emily Jane Thompson. The report from 2 years ago was thin. Just a few pages. A rushed autopsy citing accidental drowning. No signs of foul play. Parents interviewed, daycare cleared, but something new stuck out now. Emily had gone missing from inside the daycare, supposedly wandered off during outdoor play. But if she'd gone straight to the pond, why had no one seen her leave? And why was her clip just now showing up? The sinking feeling in Jenna's stomach wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about what else had been hidden, and who had hidden it. Jenna Brooks didn't sleep much that night. The hair clip sat in an evidence bag on her kitchen table, reflecting the yellow glow of the ceiling light like it had something to say. It wasn't just the sparkle, it was what it represented. A quiet whisper from the past, suddenly screaming at her through time. She opened her laptop and pulled up the old case files. Everything had been neatly closed. Too neat. Emily Jane Thompson, age 4, missing from Little Acorns. Daycare on July 17th. Last seen during supervised playtime. Her shoes found near the pond that bordered the back of the property. Body recovered by divers the next day. Ruling, accidental drowning. Case closed. No real investigation. No suspect interviews outside the daycare staff. And no explanation for how a child terrified of water managed to end up face down in it. Jenna scrolled through the photos again, feeling that tug in her gut. Emily's eyes stared back from the screen, bright, curious, full of a story that had never been told. The next morning, she stopped by the county sheriff's office before heading back to Little Acorns. Dozer trotted beside her, more alert than usual, like he remembered too.
"Going back to the daycare?"
Her supervisor, Captain Reeves, asked as he poured his 4th cup of gas station coffee. "Yeah, I want to rewalk the site," Jenna replied. "The clip didn't get there on its own. Someone put it under that chair." Reeves nodded slowly. "You think someone at the daycare knows more than they said?" "I think we all assumed Emily wandered off, but that clip didn't wander anywhere. That was intentional." He didn't argue, just handed her a faded blue folder. "You might want this. It's the original witness interviews. There's not much, but something might stand out now." Jenna took the file and left, the sun glaring off her windshield like it had something to hide, too. Back at Little Acorns, things were quieter. The staff had done their best to stay composed, but Jenna could feel the tension in the air. There was an edge now, whispers in the hallway, extra eyes on every child. Carla met her at the front door, clearly rattled. Do you think it means something?" she asked. "I do," Jenna replied, her voice calm but firm. "And I need your help walking through everything from that day. Every detail, even the ones that didn't seem important back then." Carla nodded and led her to the staff room. She pulled a key from a chain around her neck and opened a locked filing cabinet in the corner. "I kept copies," she said. "Photos, notes, drawings Emily made. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away." She handed Jenna a zippered pouch, worn from time. Inside were childlike drawings in crayon. Flowers, sunshine, a stick figure family with labels like Mommy, Daddy, and Me. Then one drawing stopped her. It was different, darker. A small figure, clearly a child, stood in a square room. In the corner was what looked like a chair. Across the page loomed a larger figure, drawn in gray with sharp black lines, angry eyes, and behind the figure, something red. The date in the top corner made Jenna's stomach turn. July 16th, the day before Emily disappeared. "I don't remember this one," Carla whispered. Jenna did. She remembered finding drawings just like this during her academy internship. Things dismissed as imagination when they were really cries for help. "This wasn't a monster," Jenna said softly. "This was a person." Carla looked like she might cry. "But who?" Jenna turned the page over. In faint pencil, a small scribble. "Mr. B says don't tell." She left the staff room, heart pounding. There had been only one male staff member back then, Brett Ellis. He'd worked part-time as a teacher's aide while finishing community college. Quit suddenly just a few weeks after Emily's death. The file said he left for personal reasons. Jenna pulled out her phone and ran a search. Found him quickly, now working at another child care center, 2 towns over. Her pulse spiked. That afternoon, she returned to the daycare with Dozer and began a scent track using the recovered hair clip. She didn't expect much. It had been 2 years after all, but Dozer surprised her. The instant she uncapped the bag, he jolted to life, sniffed the air, let out a low growl. He sniffed along the playroom floor, across the corner where the rocking chair sat, and toward the back door, the emergency exit that led to the fenced-in playground. Then he did something Jenna didn't expect. He stopped at the old supply closet. It had always been there, mostly ignored. Just a cramped little storage space full of paper towels and finger paints. Dozer scratched at the baseboard, barked once, then twice. Jenna knelt down and ran her hand along the floor. There was a faint seam in the wood, something that didn't belong. With Carla's help, they moved the shelves aside. The back wall was hollow. A panel slid open with a reluctant groan. Behind it, just a shallow crawl space. And inside? Dusty toys, old crayon boxes, a torn stuffed bear, and scratched into the wall, barely visible through the grime, EM. Jenna stared for a long moment. Someone had kept Emily in here, maybe only briefly, maybe longer. But this wasn't where a lost child hid. This was where someone put her. She took photos of everything, called it in, requested a forensic team. Back in her cruiser, Jenna stared at the old case file again. Something hadn't sat right from the start. Emily's body had been found fully clothed, her socks clean, no dirt, no cuts on her feet. That pond had a rough bank. How did a 4-year-old wander there without a mark? Maybe she hadn't walked there at all. Maybe she'd been placed, carried, staged. That night, Jenna couldn't shake the feeling she'd stumbled into something bigger, something uglier. The clip, the drawing, the hidden space. Someone had gone to a lot of effort to make it look like Emily's death was an accident. But someone had slipped. A butterfly clip in a rocking chair was all it took to unravel 2 years of silence. And as Jenna sat in her living room, Dozer resting quietly at her feet, she knew one thing for sure. The real story hadn't even begun yet. The next morning, Jenna Brooks sat in her patrol car in the parking lot of the County Records Building, thumbing through an old manila folder that smelled like dust and forgotten mistakes. She didn't know what she expected to find in Brett Ellis's original employee file, probably just the standard HR fluff. But something about that hidden crawl space in the daycare, the scrawled EM on the wall, and the way Dozer had reacted, it all screamed that someone had been very good at covering their tracks. And whoever it was hadn't expected anyone to come looking years later. The folder itself was thin, bare bones. One background check, one vague character reference from a church youth group, and an exit interview that felt more like a shoulder shrug. Brett had left 2 weeks after Emily's death. No red flags, no official complaints. But Jenna's gut said otherwise. She picked up her phone and dialed. "County Office of Licensing," said a voice on the other end. "This is Officer Jenna Brooks with Maple Glen Sheriff's Department," she said. "I'm trying to track the employment history of a former child care worker, Brett Ellis. He used to work at Little Acorns Daycare. I believe he's currently employed at another center in Millington." The woman paused. "Let me check." A few minutes of hold music. Then, "Yes, he's currently on file at Sunshine Meadow Preschool. Been there almost a year." Jenna scribbled the name and address. "Can you confirm if he has any past disciplinary actions or red flags on file?" Another pause. "No formal complaints filed in the system, but there's a note. Says he left his last job under sensitive circumstances, but no further detail. It's sealed." "Sealed?" Jenna Remy repeated. "Yeah, it's rare. Only happens when legal or law enforcement-related issues are involved." That was all she needed to hear. Sunshine Meadow Preschool was brighter than Little Acorns. Big glass windows, pastel walls, cheerful music floating through the open doorway. Jenna stood outside with Dozer, watching a staff member hand out goldfish crackers to a pair of toddlers in matching dinosaur shirts. She waited until the parents had filtered out and then walked up to the front desk. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked with a polite smile. "Yes," Jenna said. "I need to speak with Brett Ellis. Official matter." The woman frowned slightly but nodded. "I'll go get him." It took less than a minute. Brett appeared in the hallway like he hadn't aged a day since the photos in the old file. Late 20s now, maybe early 30s. Still thin, soft voice, polite smile that didn't quite meet his eyes. "Hi," he said. "I'm Brett. Is there a problem?" Jenna held up her badge. "I'd like to speak with you privately." They moved to a small, empty room down the hall. Dozer stayed close, sitting at Jenna's heel, silent but alert. "I'm reopening an investigation involving the death of a child from Little Acorns," Jenna said. "Emily Jane Thompson. You worked there at the time." Something flickered in Brett's eyes. Surprise? Annoyance? Fear? It passed too quickly to read. "I remember," he said. "That was awful." "Do you recall anything unusual from that day?" Jenna asked. He shook his head. "No, I wasn't even outside when it happened. They said she wandered off and fell into the pond." "Did you ever speak with investigators?" "I gave a statement," he replied quickly. "It's all in the file." Jenna tilted her head. "Did you know they found one of Emily's personal items under a chair in the playroom last week?" He blinked. "No, how is that even possible?" "That's what we're trying to figure out," she said. "You left 2 weeks after the incident. Why?" Look, it messed me up, okay?" he said. "A kid dying while you're supposed to be keeping them safe. I didn't want to work with children after that. But I eventually came back to it. I love kids. Always have." Jenna stared at him for a long moment. Dozer gave a low grunt. "Thanks for your time," Jenna said, standing. "I may have more questions later." Back in her car, she jotted down every detail. Brett's nervous lip twitch, the way he avoided her eyes, the defensiveness masked in practiced grief. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then she did what every cop eventually does in the quiet. She started looking where no one thought to look before. She drove back to the station and pulled the original intake log for the day Emily died. The attendance sheet had names, arrival times, initials of whoever dropped off the children. And next to Emily's name, a time, 7:12 a.m. But her class didn't start until 8. And the initials? B. Jenna froze. Why would Brett be the one to sign her in? Only staff members were allowed to do that, typically assigned teachers or the front desk assistant. But Brett had no classroom duties that day. She opened her notes again. Cross-referenced statements from other teachers. 2 of them had marked Brett as on break from 7 to 9 a.m. And the security cameras? They had been broken that week. Convenient. Too convenient? She needed more than a gut feeling. So she went back to the chair. The rocking chair. That damned antique. With the help of forensics, they dismantled it, piece by piece. Hidden beneath the seat cushion was a faint smear, stained deep into the fabric, invisible to the naked eye but visible under forensic light. Blood. Too degraded for a full DNA sequence, but still identifiable as human. That was enough for a search warrant. The next day, Jenna returned to Brett's small rental house with 2 deputies and a warrant signed by Judge Holloway. Brett answered the door, clearly shocked. "I thought we already talked," he said. "We did," Jenna replied, "but now we're going to look a little deeper." Inside, the home was clean. Too clean. Like someone had just wiped every surface in a hurry. In the hall closet, behind a stack of board games and rain boots, they found a cardboard box labeled Old Art Projects. Inside were children's drawings. None of them were Brett's. At the bottom of the box, in a wrinkled plastic bag, was a laminated craft. A butterfly made from construction paper and glitter. The name written on the back in faded marker? Emily. Jenna stood there, heart hammering, as Dozer growled low beside her. Brett tried to explain, said it was a keepsake he'd found and couldn't throw away. But Jenna wasn't listening anymore. Because the truth was becoming clear. Emily hadn't wandered anywhere. She had been kept, hidden, and now, finally, someone would have to answer for it. The moment the crawl space was uncovered, Jenna Brooks knew they had missed something big 2 years ago. That space behind the panel, hidden, cramped, and suffocating, wasn't some forgotten utility closet. It was a secret, and secrets like that don't build themselves. The forensic team had already swept the area and tagged the bear, the crayons, and the drawing with red evidence markers. But Jenna couldn't stop staring at what was etched into the wall with a piece of broken plastic. 2 shaky letters. EM. Not initials, not a coincidence. Just one little girl trying to leave a message no one would find in time. Until now. She stood up slowly and turned to Carla, whose face had gone ghost pale. I didn't know this was here," Carla whispered. "We always thought it was just a storage wall. No one ever opened it." "No reason to," Jenna said softly. "Unless you were hiding something, or someone." Carla shook her head, her eyes wide. "This was during nap time. The lights were dimmed. We only had 3 staff on rotation that day, 1 off sick. No one was supposed to be in this part of the building." Jenna didn't say anything right away. Her mind was racing. If Emily had been held in this space, even briefly, then whatever happened to her wasn't an accident. This was intentional, controlled, timed. And someone who worked here knew how to manipulate the building well enough to use that hidden compartment. She reached for her phone and called the sheriff's office. "Yeah, Reeves here. Captain, we've got something. A hidden chamber in the playroom wall. Toys, art supplies, a teddy bear that looks worn, and the letters EM scratched into the interior." "Jesus," Reeves muttered. "Anyone know about it?" "Not officially, but this wasn't spontaneous. Whoever did this knew how to hide her." There was silence on the line for a beat. "You want us to reopen it as a criminal investigation?" "It's not a request," Jenna said. "This wasn't a drowning. This was a cover-up." By late afternoon, crime scene tape stretched across the daycare entrance. Parents had been alerted that the school was temporarily closed due to ongoing structural inspection. But the truth was already spreading through town. Maple Glen hadn't had a murder in 15 years. It was the kind of place that prided itself on normalcy. Safe streets. Little league. Block parties. No one locked their doors because they didn't believe evil could find its way in. But now, they were realizing it had already been here. Quiet. Patient. Working with their children. Inside the station, Jenna sat in front of a whiteboard covered with sticky notes and timelines. Emily had been marked present at 7:12 a.m. She was missing at 9:35 a.m. Her shoes were found near the pond around 10 a.m. Her body recovered from the shallow end just after 1 p.m. The timeline had always bothered Jenna, even when she was new to the force. It didn't make sense that no one saw her leave the daycare. The building was small, the yard enclosed. And now, with this hidden space revealed, the pieces were starting to click. Emily never left. Not willingly, Dozer lay on his mat beside her desk, eyes watching Jenna quietly as she reviewed the forensics from the chair and the crawl space. The blood on the cushion was confirmed to be female, aged between 3 to 6 years. Not enough to confirm identity, but enough to prove something happened in that chair. And likely before Emily was found. A trace hair, long, brown, and untreated, was also collected from the floorboard near the crawl space. It was a match for Emily's DNA. She had been alive after she was marked missing, which meant someone took her. Someone held her in that space. Someone placed her body in the pond after the fact. And Brett Ellis had been the last one seen alone in that part of the daycare. Jenna drove to his residence that evening, armed with a warrant and a team of deputies. This time, Brett didn't pretend to be cooperative. "What is this?" he snapped as they stepped through the door. "I talked to you already. I didn't do anything." "We have new evidence," Jenna replied calmly. "We'd like to ask you a few more questions." "You people never let anything go," he muttered. "It's been 2 years. She drowned. I had nothing to do with it." "We found a hidden compartment in the daycare," she said. That stopped him. "What?" "A crawl space, behind the playroom wall, with toys, drawings, a teddy bear." Brett's mouth opened slightly, but he said nothing. "We also found a construction paper butterfly in your house," Jenna continued, "with Emily's name written on the back. That doesn't prove anything. It proves you kept something. Something no innocent man would keep." His face reddened. "She liked me," he snapped. "She followed me around. That was her problem, not mine." Jenna froze. "You just said she followed you." Brett swallowed. I meant she liked helping. Kids do that sometimes." Jenna leaned in. "You just told me you weren't even around her that day." His silence was all the confession she needed. That night, she filed for his official arrest. The charge: obstruction of justice and tampering with a crime scene. The DA wanted more time before pushing for homicide. But Jenna didn't care about the paperwork. She cared about Emily. The next morning, she stood in the crawl space again. A forensic team had lifted nearly a dozen partial fingerprints from the back wall and inside the bear's fabric. 2 matched Emily. 1 matched Brett. But 1 didn't match anyone in the system. A 4th person. An adult. Possibly a woman. And that meant the nightmare might not end with Brett. Later that evening, as she sat reviewing every employee from that summer, 1 name jumped out. Miss Teresa Dean, teacher's aide, mid-50s, soft-spoken, former foster parent, had left just a month after Emily's death, citing family illness. Jenna checked her file again. No disciplinary record. But in her notes from other staff, an odd comment stood out. Teresa never let kids sit in the rocking chair unless she was there. Said it was special. Jenna leaned back in her chair. The chair. The crawl space. The missing hair clip. And now a second adult possibly involved. Emily hadn't just drowned. She had been silenced. Outside the station, a summer storm rolled in. Thunder cracking like a gavel through the sky. And Jenna knew whatever had happened 2 years ago wasn't just tragic. It was intentional, and the truth was finally pushing its way to the surface. Jenna Brooks stood in the evidence room, arms crossed, staring at the rocking chair like it might start talking. In a way, it already had. For days, the chair had been sitting there, roped off, isolated under a plastic dust sheet, silent and unnerving. It had been with children every day, a fixture in the playroom. It had rocked kids to sleep, sat in the corner during story time. Teachers had leaned on it. Parents had walked right by it. And all along, it was hiding something. It had hidden blood. It had hidden Emily. And possibly, it had hidden evil. The forensic report sat on the table next to her. The dried blood found beneath the cushion was now confirmed to be a match for Emily Jane Thompson, even after 2 years. That alone shifted the entire investigation from possibility to certainty. Jenna opened the folder labeled Recovered Items, Daycare, and pulled out the photos. Not just of the chair, but the crawl space, the teddy bear, the butterfly clip, the child's drawing. One in particular stood out again. Emily's crayon drawing of a little girl alone in a box, a shadow figure looming, and in the corner, almost missed, was a sketch of the same rocking chair. Deep curved arms, the same shape, same lines. The chair had been part of the story all along. That afternoon, Jenna visited Carla again. They sat in the empty daycare hallway, a sense of stillness hanging in the air like something sacred had been disturbed. "Did you ever notice anything strange about the chair?" Jenna asked. Carla hesitated. "I mean, it never matched the rest of the furniture," she admitted. "Everything else was bright, soft-edged, plastic or fabric. That chair, it was antique, old-fashioned, looked like something from your grandma's attic. Where did it come from?" Carla furrowed her brow. "Now that you mention it, I'm not really sure. I assumed it was always here." "Was it purchased with school funds?" "I don't think so." Carla paused. "Wait, Teresa. I think she brought it in." "Teresa Dean?" Carla nodded slowly. "Yeah. One day it just showed up, and she told the staff director she'd donated it. Said she'd had it in storage and thought it would add warmth to the room." Jenna felt her stomach tighten. Teresa Dean. The name had hovered in the back of her mind for days. Former foster parent, daycare aide, left suddenly after Emily's death. No record, no complaints, too clean. Until now, Jenna pulled up the daycare's donation records and matched handwriting samples from the personnel forms. A thank you card included in the log confirmed the chair was from Teresa Dean's personal collection. She had brought it in just 6 days before Emily's disappearance. The same week, Brett Ellis had begun working unsupervised in the mornings. Jenna and Dozer paid Teresa a visit that evening. Her house sat on the far side of Maple Glen, away from the busy town center, an aging 2-story tucked behind an overgrown hedge and flaking shutters. A wind chime clinked hollowly as Jenna knocked on the door. Teresa answered with a look of pleasant surprise. "Well now, I haven't had company in a while," she said, brushing her silver hair behind one ear. "Are you from the church?" "No, ma'am. I'm Officer Jenna Brooks with the Maple Glen Sheriff's Department." "Oh." Her smile thinned, but she opened the door wider. Come in, come in." Inside smelled like lavender and dust. Lace curtains, porcelain dolls, and framed Bible verses adorned the walls. A mantel photo showed her with a group of children, foster kids, presumably. She offered sweet tea, which Jenna politely declined. "I need to ask you some questions about Little Acorn's Daycare," Jenna began, "and about Emily Jane Thompson." Teresa's face twitched just slightly. "That was such a sad time. Poor thing. Drowned, didn't she?" "She was found in the pond," Jenna replied. "But now we're not so sure how she got there." Teresa blinked. "Oh? You brought a rocking chair into the daycare about a week before Emily went missing. Is that correct?" Teresa nodded slowly. "Yes, I thought it might help with story time. The old one had a crack. I didn't think anyone minded."
Do you remember what day you brought it in?
She paused. "Must have been a Monday. I remember because I helped set up for the week's theme, bugs and butterflies. That's what the kids were drawing that day." "Butterflies." Jenna made a note. "Were you working the day Emily disappeared?" Teresa's eyes flickered. "No, I was sick that morning. I didn't come in until Thursday." "That's not what the staff log says," Jenna said, sliding a photocopy of the schedule across the table. "You were clocked in at 7:30 a.m. and signed out around 10:50. Teresa glanced at the paper, her hands folding in her lap. "Must be a mistake." Dozer gave a low grunt, shifting beside Jenna's leg. Teresa tried to smile, but it faltered. "Sometimes I forget things," she said quietly. "Did you know Brett Ellis was working alone in the playroom that morning?" Jenna asked. "I thought he was shadowing me," Teresa said. "We were training him." "And did Emily often spend time alone with you?" "She was shy," Teresa said. "Preferred quiet corners. Sometimes she'd sit on my lap and color while I read." "Did she ever tell you anything that made you uncomfortable?" "No." Teresa shook her head. "She was a sweet child, imaginative." Jenna studied her face. Do you know what happened to her? A pause. Then, she drowned. That's what they said. But that's not what you believe. Another pause. She was a delicate girl, Teresa said softly. Some children aren't made for this world. It's too loud, too cruel. Jenna stood. Thank you for your time. Teresa didn't stop her, didn't ask for updates, didn't seem surprised. Back at the station, Jenna ran Teresa Dean's name through every public database she could access. What she found turned her stomach. In the late 90s, Teresa and her late husband had been under investigation for foster care violations, emotional abuse, excessive isolation, unapproved punishments. But the case had been dismissed due to lack of evidence. Still, 3 foster children had been removed from the home. That wasn't coincidence. That was pattern. Later that night, Jenna reviewed the daycare security reports again. Something she'd missed before finally clicked. The emergency back door, which had supposedly been locked the morning Emily vanished, had been left ajar for exactly 6 minutes, from 9:27 to 9:33 a.m. That was after Emily had been marked missing, but before her shoes were found by the pond. Someone had staged the scene, planted the shoes, used the door, and Jenna was beginning to believe it wasn't just Brett Ellis acting alone. Emily had known something. She'd drawn it. She'd tried to show someone, and someone had silenced her. The next morning, as the sun rose over Maple Glen, casting long golden light across the daycare's empty playground, Jenna stood in the center of the room once more, staring at the empty space where the rocking chair used to be. It had rocked dozens of children, but only one had died, and now it was time to find out why. The sting operation was quiet by design. No sirens, no flashing lights, just unmarked vehicles, neutral clothes, and slow-moving agents. Jenna Brooks stood inside her SUV parked across from Sunshine Meadow Preschool, her fingers clenched around a coffee cup she hadn't sipped in over an hour. Dozer sat alert beside her, sensing the tension in her stillness. Across the street, Brett Ellis moved through the preschool's parking lot like it was any other day. Light backpack. That same fake smile. The man who, 2 years ago, had lied to her face about a little girl's final hours. Only today, he wasn't just on the radar. He was being watched. But Brett wasn't the only target. The focus had shifted since the chair, the crawl space, and the files on Teresa Dean. Jenna had quietly convinced the sheriff's office and the DA to reopen the case, not as a single offender investigation, but as a collaborative concealment, a conspiracy. Because in towns like Maple Glen, evil rarely works alone. It finds silence. It feeds on it. At 10:13 a.m., Teresa Dean pulled into the preschool lot. Right on schedule. She stepped out of her car, wearing the same neat slacks and pastel blouse as always, smiling, nodding at staff. She looked like someone's kind aunt, someone who brought home-baked cookies to church socials, not someone who had once supervised a hidden crawl space meant to confine a child. But today, Jenna had more than suspicion. Back at the precinct, a judge had reviewed the newly uncovered evidence. DNA matches in the rocking chair, fingerprints in the crawl space, inconsistencies in the staff logs, and damning recordings from Teresa's last conversation. Jenna had worn a wire, and in that recording, Teresa had said one thing that turned the case. Some children aren't made for this world. That wasn't just a passive opinion. That was motive. At 10:31 a.m., the preschool director was called outside to check on a reported issue with a delivery truck. That was the window. 2 plainclothes deputies approached the classroom where Brett was reading a story to a group of toddlers. He looked up, startled, then pale. "Mr. Ellis?" one deputy asked calmly. "We need to speak with you." Jenna waited as they escorted him out. Dozer's ears perked as Brett was placed in the back of a county SUV. A few minutes later, 2 more deputies approached Teresa in the preschool hallway. She turned, expecting a warm greeting. Instead, they showed her the warrant. "Teresa Dean, you are under arrest for obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, and accessory to the unlawful death of Emily Jane Thompson. Her mouth fell open. Her voice cracked. You can't do this. But they already had. That afternoon, Jenna sat across from both of them in two separate interrogation rooms. Brett cracked first. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was the realization that Teresa wasn't going to protect him anymore. It wasn't supposed to go that far, he muttered, rocking slightly in his chair. She was just crying. Wouldn't stop. I put her in the closet to calm down. Teresa said it was okay, said she'd done it before with other kids. Jenna sat motionless. She said we just needed to keep her quiet until pickup. Said if we told the director she'd wandered off, they'd believe it. They always do. And then? Jenna asked. She stopped making noise. His voice cracked. She wasn't moving. We panicked. He claimed Teresa told him what to do next. She said we'd put her near the pond, that the police would think she wandered. They always blame the pond. And for a time, it worked. When Teresa was questioned, she denied everything. Calm, composed, but no longer convincing. You can't blame me for another person's mistakes, she said. I didn't harm that child. You facilitated it, Jenna replied. You brought in the chair. You created the hiding spot. You watched a scared little girl draw monsters on paper and did nothing. She was fragile, Teresa said quietly. She wasn't like the others. And now she's dead. Teresa blinked slowly, then looked away. No remorse, just silence. Emily Jane Thompson's case was formally reclassified as homicide. The press release was carefully worded, focusing on newly uncovered evidence and ongoing legal proceedings. Jenna didn't care about the headlines. She cared that Emily's name was no longer written off as a tragedy. She cared that people finally understood. Someone had done this. This wasn't a random accident. It was cruelty, buried beneath routine and trust. The rocking chair, the crawl space, the butterfly clip, they weren't just items anymore. They were testimony. A few weeks later, Jenna returned to the daycare. The building had been cleaned, repainted, the walls scrubbed of their ghosts. But the corner where the chair once sat was now empty. No toy shelf, no art easel, just a soft rug and a patch of quiet. Jenna stood there for a long time. Carla joined her and placed a small picture frame on the floor. Inside was a drawing, a butterfly, crayons and glitter. The name Emily written in neat letters across the bottom. She mattered, Carla whispered. She really did. She still does, Jenna replied. On the way out, Jenna passed by a group of children running toward the swings, laughter chasing them across the playground. For a brief second, she imagined a girl with dark brown hair and a pink butterfly clip, finally free from hiding. As she walked back to her cruiser, Dozer jumped up beside her, tail wagging faintly. She gave him a scratch behind the ear. We did it, buddy. Dozer let out a soft huff, eyes alert but peaceful. The mission, for now, was over. Thank you so much for following this journey with us. Emily's story is one of thousands of silent tragedies waiting to be heard, waiting for someone to listen, someone to care. What do you think could have been done differently that day at the daycare? And more importantly, would you have noticed what that dog saw when no one else did?